Yo, 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 we back in this thing. What's going on, Brother Dre?
You know, just a squirrel trying to bust a nut.
I hear that. I hear that. Same day, different, you know what. So it's just, woo. Yeah.
It's been quite a week, huh? Here in America.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. It's like, just when you think you've seen it all, just when you think you can predict the future as well as we can sometimes you can't predict the emotions that you would feel, even though you knew what would happen.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just don't, it's crazy.
It is crazy and troubling and upsetting and weird, and the truth. And we honestly, like I said, we can't be too shocked at what is, what is America, our history. So before we get too heavy, let's talk about the fashion and the drinks.
Let's do it.
Because I'll run down that path.
You're right. You're right about that. You're right, good brother. You're right. It's back. Black Lives Matter.
That's a real good shirt.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I haven't seen many of these anywhere. I mean, I haven't seen them at all, actually, except from one spot that I got it from. And there's a lot of folks who have this. What do you say?
Is that Savage?
No. This is from the movement. The movement Mount Airy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You gotta run me to these spots. You gotta show me.
No doubt, yo. We out here. So I think the brother he commutes from between DC and here in Philly. So sometimes in DC, other times he's open over here. So next time they open, we gotta be in there.
With it. Hook me up.
Yes, sir. What you got rocking?
Watch Stacks. 1972. I've asked you before. Have you watched this documentary yet about this show?
I haven't. You kicked knowledge to me though. You definitely
did. Well, you know what? I'm for one. I like the image right now, just in everybody's face, like walking around, like don't y'all forget. And the movie itself, I was talking about it with someone today, and they said we sure could use one of those right now. It was a concert that was held 1972, post the various riots around the country and the riots in Watts, and just a whole bunch of funky people got together, and Isaac Hayes closed the show out in like this out of control outfit. I think Curtis Mayfield was up in there. Like everybody came and threw down, and it was a big concert in a big stadium. And it was peaceful and beautiful and great and wonderful, and just people to come together on something else. So it's comforting for me to wear. For one, I love the image, and then also think about the thing. You should sit down with your wife and watch it. I think it's amazing. It's one of those. Isaac from Love Boat is in it, like dropping knowledge.
Okay.
About the culture.
Okay.
Isaac from Love Boat. I'm sorry, I know his real name, but he's in there dropping knowledge. Richard Pryor's in it. Like it's just good stuff. So I would like to represent because I need to feel something.
Oh. Yes, sir. So speaking of needing to feel something, what you sipping on, brother?
I decided to roll out something you introduced me to.
Oh, yes.
Ruffles.
Oh, yes. You know what? See, so here's a little something for the folks at home. When we get ready, sometimes I have a couple of bottles off on the side. It was too perfect. It's too perfect.
You thought you was setting something else. I was trying to be a background. You was setting something else.
It was too perfect. Like, so usually what I do, I keep my stuff on the side, and I was gonna start with a bottle, but since you broke out the Russell's, brother, which is made by Wild Turkey. That's the Wild Turkey family, all of them. Russell Reserve comes from that. I think I'm gonna pivot and join you.
Ah, cousins.
Oh, yes.
The cousins.
So I'm going to join you, brother.
Oh, beautiful. I like that. Our little bougie Wild Turkey bottles.
Right?
That's really what they are.
So bougie, you can't get into them. I'm over here struggling, brother.
That newness. The pressure, that newness.
Okay,
Na,
so
na, na, na,
there we
na,
go. I found it. I found the seal.
na, 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 na.
There
Hey.
we go. There we go. There we go.
That's a good for. That's a good for. That's a good for.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what's the like the black Mazel Tov when you open the bottle? I was gonna say, like,
That's a good. Because
yo,
I was like, yo, Osh, Osh.
Osh, that's good. That's good. What you want to toast to this week?
How about we toast to surviving and thriving while tearing down and dismantling all that wants to keep us from surviving and thriving.
Yes to that. Ashe.
Ashe. There you go.
See, Ashe is like the cheers,
Mm-hmm.
not so much the Mazel Tov.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going. I don't know if I told you I went to this black. I forgot to go today. What had time to go today? There's a gathering of Black Quakers that have a little session,
Yes.
a little meeting for worship. And every time somebody speaks, everybody says Ashe.
That's just dope, man.
It's so good. It's so good. I haven't been to one in person, but I can't wait to be in person. Jeff posts like Ashe after somebody stands up and speaks. Very interesting. Very reclaiming. You know,
exactly. What we need to see is a HBQ CU, like a historically black Quaker college or university or something. That's what we need to find or found.
Well, what would that look like? What would that look like? How do you achieve the spices? How do you achieve simplicity in that universe?
So here's the thing, though. I think meaningful worship would be totally different.
A little bit.
The culture is call and response.
Exactly.
So if we're going to be silent and someone,
right,
we're going to have to do something. Like there has to be some type of call and response. It has to be something. So I don't know if we're sitting in silence for the whole, like, I don't know. It might have to be like some hand clapping in between or something.
And then when a little one I go to, they start by pouring libations. The elder pours libations. The oldest person there pours. I love it. And then the oldest person is always the opener and closer. You know, and they also do somebody's always singing a song. You know, just break out. That's great.
Listen, I'm all for it. Listen, if we might have to start something. Might have to start something.
HBQCU.
Make it happen. Because I only know of a few like Quaker colleges, universities, you know. I only know about a few. But yeah, hey now. Might holla at your people.
I would teach there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It just straight up social justice work.
Completely. That's all it is. That's all it is. 125%.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I mean, brother, you must be busy these days. I know you're busy. All the work and things that you do, the beautiful work that you do, whether it's, you know, making films, facilitating conversation. It's difficult, though, when you have to deal with things in the moment, stuff that's happening in real time. So I don't know how you've been dealing with this situation that we were alluding to earlier, brother, but how have you been dealing with all the stuff that you do and having to hold at the center stuff that's unfolding right in front of our eyes?
I think I'm working to figure that out on a daily basis. Because you know, it's tough. It's real tough, and it's not so easy and clear cut and simple as you would imagine. So I think what I do is I have my own. Personally, I just sometimes just cut stuff off and I'll go like watch like Marvel on Disney Plus. because everything I read is also focused around this. So the reading, because I'm pushing my way through Isabel Wilkerson's cast, and it's just like, it's really informative and also so upsetting at the same time. It's like, really? It's America. Really America. Learning that Nazi Germany studied Jim Crow to build their regime. Did we talk about that last week? Just I'm so just reflecting on that. Like, it really came and studied. So I think the way I deal is I do take joy and happiness in the fact that people are leaning in, stepping in, wanting to do this work at a higher level. I really do embrace that and take that very seriously. With my movies that I'm crafting or that I already have crafted, I lean further into the conversation and pull people deeper in, because so much has to happen in order for us to really move forward with these issues that I'm really pushing folks to like show up and push hard. But the personal care space is about turning it all off and just going to go watch. Even though when I watch Marvel, I'm like, how come Black Panther's the only Black person, you know? Because you can just see it. The annoying thing is you can see it. You can see it. You can see it. And it's like, look what happened when you let these people let us tell a Black story in the Marvel universe. You know? So yeah, it's a tricky one, because I do the self-care and cut things off. And I also dig deeper into it when I'm doing the work. I'm still working on that balance. I don't feel like I have a complete balance. I feel like I go until I'm exhausted. I had a session this week, the day the verdict came in, which was not surprising. I said to people, I was like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to process it? We spent like 10 minutes. And they were like, you know what? Let's do the other exercise, because I'm tired of all this. Maybe we can have conversations through doing the exercise, but just to sit and sit and dwell on it is not getting me anywhere. And I was like, I respect that. So we went with the process and worked through it, and you know, we find our way. I feel like I don't have a clear answer, because I find myself just being a little bit like, I don't know, how do I deal with it? How about you? What are your ways?
No, I really appreciate you sharing that, brother, because, you know, I feel very much the same way as you, just trying to figure it out. You know, as I was saying earlier, you know, it was, you know, it's the same-ish, different day.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, it seems like these days don't end in terms of all the ish that comes our way. And, you know, I think we talked about this earlier when we were talking about everything that happened over the summer, or sprummer, as I was calling it, spring and summer, right? We were talking about all these things. And for me, it's like, how do I manage and balance the righteous anger and outrage that I feel, and also maintain sanity and show up in the spaces that I have to show up responsibly, as opposed to reacting the way that I want to react.
Right.
And that's challenging. It's
really
so challenging. And it's like, how do you give energy to something and to other people when you might be drained yourself? How do you talk about things that you're tired of talking about? How do you speak up when you really just want to be quiet, because God knows what might come out your mouth? So that's the piece. And I think, you know, what we often struggle with is, it's hard for us to divorce ourselves from our work. So the roles that we play, whether it's professionally or personally, there's all this intersection. Everything's intertwined to the point where we're just voguing out here, brother. We voguing. Everything is just connected, right? Everything is connected. Yeah. And it's so difficult to compartmentalize, even though sometimes you might have to try to in order to get through the day or get through a moment. But it's tough. And I find myself, you know, getting angry sometimes. Like, honestly, I was like, I have to show up in this space and put on a strong face for the students. And I have to make sure that I'm not being chipper and everything, but make sure I'm still being the respectable, respectful, hi, how you doing, Mikael, in these spaces where I really don't feel like talking to not a one of y'all. if you don't look like me in particular, because you might not understand what's happening right now. So I'm like, how can I show up and, let people know how I feel without having to let people know how I feel? And I try to find that way to balance that safety and that self-care piece. It's like, I'm not going to get myself in a spot where things might get unsafe because I might pop off and say whatever, but I'm also going to practice my self-care because you need to know how I feel, but I don't really feel like sharing that, at least speaking with you. And then, letting time process and having some time to sit down or take my attention elsewhere, listen to some gospel, listen to some good music, maybe some comedy, etc. But yeah, man, like you said, it's there's no approach that I can say, you know what, you have to do this. I don't have one of those approaches. It really is, one day at a time.
Yeah, music, comedy, all those things, like something to take your mind off of it, is real. I think that's a good one. And I get the notion of having to be a certain person for the observers, people that are watching you and interacting with you, and you're teaching and training. And honestly, you have to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
I really get that. I've been thinking about this nonstop. One of my kids, my filmmaking class they had to make this film called My So-Called Quarantine Life to illustrate what was going on for them in the world. This one kid made this movie, laying in bed, he gets up, starting his day, and he has to read, and he picks him up and he's reading, and you see him start to read, and then he flashes to protest marches. He's back in trying to read the book, and then he flashes to climate change, back of the book. He flashes to the election, back in the book, and I was like, wow, that kid just spoke my mind. It's hard to sit down and just focus and read when you think about all this stuff happening in the world. And it's like, I have had so many moments of does it matter to eat well? Does it matter to be consistent and stay on this and that? Because who knows what's going to happen next year, tomorrow, this afternoon, which isn't the most positive attitude or positive choice making. But you do find yourself being like, yeah, I'm going to have that bowl of ice cream because who knows what's up with tomorrow? That may be a little bit my excuse more than anything else, but I'm not going to lie. But I do find myself in those moments of being like, F it, whatever. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel hopeful and look to a future that is ours. But man.
But that's real talk. That's real talk, because I think a lot of students, at least the ones who I've spoken with, in terms of us trying to make space for folks to process, what I keep hearing is that same exact thing, though. So you talk about the situation with Breonna Taylor, you see exactly, another miscarriage of justice, and you see the situation, and it's like, okay, you mean to tell me, again, you give us all these rules of things we're supposed to do. You tell us about all these laws that we have access to as citizens. We follow everything to the T. We do all these things. We're not committing any type of crimes, etc. And yet, and still, we get killed. And yet, and still, if we're defending our own home, they try to say that we were the ones who were doing attempting murder. So you see all these things, and I'm thinking about that person who gets this message over and over and over again. They might feel the same way, where they have a state of learned helplessness, or where they just throw their hands up and like, yo, so what? Because no matter what I do, I could be on this diet, I could be making sure I'm, reading a book a day, I can make sure I'm doing all these things. At the end of the day, because of my identity, in many spaces, so what? So, and that's a tough place to be in. It's a very tough place to be in.
Real tough. I had 2 talks this week that were, and it's interesting because we do this work, so we are in it and we're confronted with it on a daily basis. But my cousin, who works, he PhD, works HR for Congress, in it, he and his husband decided to take a course about gun ownership. 2 Black men. And I was like, okay, living in DC, somebody walked into their house. Luckily, the dog was just like, oh, but somebody just walked in. So they were like, yo, and considering all that's happening, they're taking a course to learn about it. And he had a real intense moment of learning about gun rights and how things worked. And he was like, you're not gonna believe it. He's like, I'm just so taken aback. And he ran through, he said, the way it works is when someone is vetted to the point of owning a gun, they're on a certain level. There's a certain level of assumption on their part when it comes to the law. So if somebody has passed all the tests, the background checks, et cetera, to actually be a card carrying, legally carrying a gun, they are dealt in a different way in the courtroom because it's assumed that they are a good, honorable person. In the case, the clearest case is George Zimmerman. Because he had passed all the tests, et cetera, to own a gun, he's considered to be someone that's at a certain level above someone. And the perfect example about, I was like, what about Orlando Castile? He's like, good question. What happened with him? Because there's so many rules. What happened with Orlando Castile is because the gun was in front of him, the officer immediately had the right to defend himself. If you have a gun, you're supposed to keep it in your holster or behind you. If a gun is in front of you, that's officially considered a violation of the agreement you made about gun ownership. So therefore, so he talked about that, and then I talked to my cop friend, my New York cop friend. I was like, "What's up with this Breonna Taylor course?" Because I mentioned before, he told me a year before the Eric Garner trial happened, he was like, "No one's being indicted or found guilty or charged in this case. Watch." And I was like, "How can you say that?" I saw the video. He's like, "Trust me, just watch." And I was like, no. And I saw it. He was like, told you, And so I was like, is this similar to what happened with Breonna, this situation? And he's like, yeah, in a sense. He's like, the problem, and this was his talk. And I listened for a while and I had my own thoughts on it. He said, the problem with this situation is the media pumped up so much and we're not dealing with the facts. And I was like, what's the facts? He said the cops had a no-knock warrant. And he said, I'm against no-knock warrants. I think they're problematic. That was his small look and view into the problem with systemic racism, which is a reflection of policies and practices and laws. And he even said, he's like, the war on drugs messed us up. And that's how we got the no-knock warrant and all kinds of stuff. Like that programming, trying to get Nixon all the way up till today, is problematic. Yet he's someone that exists under those institutions and functions in that way. You can hear him like talking and contradicting himself. He's like, we can't have these things where all the opinions are this or that, but the way it is over here. And I was like, wait, you can't say both of those things. You can't have an opinion about how all things work, and then on the other side of your mouth say the problem is having an opinion about how all things work. So that was a moment as I was talking to him, we're exploring this context, thinking of the problem. If you look at the whole situation, the cops came and her boyfriend started firing at them. Therefore, they have the right to fire back and shoot to kill. Like, that's how it works. That's the law. That's how it works. That's why no one was indicted, because they were following the exact procedures that are in place to have for this to happen. And so the problem is we have to get rid of we got to decrease these war on drugs, institutional policy practices, and laws. I was kind of like, well, we also got to change you, because you sit here functioning under it, like to sit here and be like, the laws, man, the laws. We got the no-knock warrant. The guys start firing, so we have to shoot back in. And I just been sitting with that. I've been sitting with that. And here is an intellectual dude. He once said to me, one of the hardest is being a police officer in New York City was being a critical thinker. You're not surrounded by them. You're surrounded by people just the opposite. And it's just really intense to witness and see folks in the world push back on stuff and like really, really honor and celebrate and push forward systemic racism. Like people are honoring it. The Breonna Taylor case is a moment of honoring it. I've been thinking like, and I gotta say, I just don't like the memification of it all. The memes where you see Breonna Taylor next to Emmett Till. I don't like it. When I see it, I'm like, I don't approve of this. I get the message, I get it, but I'd rather teach you a class and have a long conversation about the Emmett Till situation, dissect it, and then do the same for Breonna Taylor, as opposed to like, it happened on the same day, September 23rd. And it's like, that's a horrible coincidence. I don't deny that that's the truth. But there's a whole, you're simplifying two major moments. The connection I do see and I do think about the same way this officer was telling me, like, well, there were policies and practices in place. And you could make that, he and I could have been having that same argument in 1957, 1953, 1954, during all this stuff, and be like, well, you know, black men are not, black boys, black men, black young men are not supposed to acknowledge and respond to white women in that way. So that's what happened. That's why nobody got arrested. Like, it could have been the same conversation. And I wonder about my ancestors who had to sit back and listen to that. And you can't say, are you crazy? No one deserves to die because they potentially looked at, talked to, made a comment about, acknowledge a white woman. No one deserves to die, but they couldn't say that because they might be killed themselves. And this version we have today of the Breonna Taylor situation, well, you know, and good old Charles Barkley,
Oh my God.
that's terrible assessment. Spoke to the, like, the problem I had with it was he was saying a truth in terms of just listing what happened, but he wasn't going to the honesty of the problem with that truth. You know, in terms of, yes, the guy shot first out the room, the cops doing their jobs. What's all the stuff behind it that leads the cop to the point where they are running in, guns a-blazing, and there's a no-knock warrant on someone that doesn't even live there anymore, and she's dead, and let's talk about $12 million. Hold up, $12 million, and your boy got 7. Mr. Crump, the attorney.
I didn't know that's how much he got. Get out of here.
Yeah, totally. It's sitting here like, I mean, you fact check me on that. But I read that so quickly, and I was like, I can't go down this path, and I can't unpack this. $12 million for the family, and his fee is 7. A team of lawyers. Yeah, man. And my grandmother was said. I remember my grandmother said, "We can't win for losing." We can't win for losing.
Listen, and that's been one of the things I wanted to look into for the longest time, because again, his name keeps coming up. Other folks too, and I no knock against the brother. I mean, another name come up. You know, Lee Merritt. You know, other folks. It's always all these folks, and it's like you see all these folks who continue to come up when it's Trayvon Martin, when it's, you know, George Floyd, when it's Jacob Blake, you see all these folks, and it's like it's the same names. So I need to do a little bit more research into that and see if there's any type of connections, etc., and to really tease out what's really happening. I'll leave it at that. However, you dropped a lot of stuff just now, brother. A lot of stuff, and I'm gonna see if I can respond to like most of it. So I am in agreement with you about the oversimplification, oversaturation, over-memification of what we're going through right now. I think it really waters down, trivializes, minimalizes what's actually happening because of what has actually happened for years. And I think that sometimes a post on Instagram is just that, a post on Instagram. We're not unpacking anything. We're not shedding new light. We're not really digging into the research. We might have just learned about the name Emmett Till because of how systemic racism works, and we're not taught certain things in school. So if we haven't seen it, that is what it is, right? So that piece is like, I get it, I understand it, but where's the teeth? We need some teeth, right? So I'm with you on that. So with me, you know, my background's in policy analysis and management. So I really, really dig into policies, look at laws, and like that's what I do. And by nature, particularly if I don't have respect for something or someone or an institution, or if I've done my due diligence and I understand that those rules, regulations were not designed by a person who cared about me, let alone looked like me or knew me, I'm challenging those. I have questions. And if I don't get the right answers, I'm breaking them. That's just how I am. Like, that's how I operate. Folks know that. I've shared that up front with folks. I'm a rule challenger. And then if folks don't listen and don't engage me in that conversation and tell me the why, I don't care about the what. I read it. I'm not dumb. Why? Where did it come from? If that why is not sufficient, or it condones violence against me, I'm breaking it. Because again, it's not a rule that's made for me. It wasn't even when I joked about the Quaker stuff, I've said this before. They said, wisdom comes from every corner of the room. I'm like, when folks said that, was I in that room? Did someone who looked like me, were they in that room? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. So does wisdom come from every corner of the room, or a room that doesn't have me in it? I just need to know. Am I that spook who sat by the door, or am I actually inside the room? I need to know, brother. I need to know. So I have questions. So when it comes to all of this stuff, woo, I get fired up because I'm in class and I'm teaching my class Power, Identity, and Social Change. And we're about to get into the whole notion of what race is, what ethnicity is, etc. But I did it in a sense where we started with the Breonna Taylor, verdict, Trevor Noah's piece on, Daily Show, and he really unpacked a lot of different things. So I said, how did we get here? How did we get here? So I gave him the history of race. I talked about, how it's been fluid and not finite, and why. I talked about, I said, if you learn anything from me at all in this class, here's what you need to learn: the importance of framing. Whoever frames something or defines something really can control the narrative. We have folks who frame a discussion or give you a definition of something. Those are the ones who are usually going to be like, well, this is the solution. Well, this is what this means. So I said, make sure you listen to that and watch for that and all that you do, that critical thinking piece, to really challenge and combat certain things that just don't add up. So, I mean, I hear and it's always the arguments with, again, as we've seen, Daniel Cameron, right? All skin folk ain't kinfolk. We've seen this time and time again. But there's times when I have conversations with some of I thought were kinfolk who just happen to be skin folk, and we have a conversation and they list the facts just like that. I'm like, this is not no categories where you just got to listen. We're not doing that. We're asking you to actually think about what is happening, what's functioning in that space. Don't just give me that. Tell me if that makes sense to you or not. And, it's a life or death situation. So it's really not a game. It's not a game, but some folks think it's a game.
Wow. Some of my favorite moments are when Reverend Dr. Israel comes out. that dissertation point you just made there, in terms of, I'm going to work to understand the rule. I'm going to work to find out who created the rule. And if I don't appreciate and find myself within that creation, that rule, I'm going to break it. That is, I think about that. You articulated something I think about all the time, of like, this ain't meant for me. I remember Dr. Naeem Akbar came. I've probably told this before. And it was probably a mistake for a junior in college to hear this without somebody to go talk to. He's like, you need to know, boy, your seat is an A. Because this place was not designed for you. And I was like, word? When you're 20, 21, 22, it's a party. But I really remember distinctly, and this was a moment of transition of like, those moments you could be like, that's when I chose to be a man, and make a choice. I remember I had a paper due on Malcolm X. And it was like this event I really, really wanted to go to. Like, oh, it's going to be fire, And I was like, I need to sit down and do my assignment. I need to really sit down, read this book, work on this. And it's Malcolm X for one, and then cover and do the work for, and I'll miss that party. It may happen again next year, but that's okay. And felt much better behind that. And I think the connection I think I'm making is the, Frantz Fanon and Jean-Paul Sartre kind of both, suggested this notion, an idea that we are our choices. Whatever you choose to be and define yourself as, and how you choose to move to the world becomes who you are. And that rule breaker, I feel like you just revealed like a big part of you that I could see, but I couldn't like identify. And now I'm like, oh, I know what it is. Like there it is.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, the more and more people spend time with me, the more and more they realize I'm just allergic to some type of stuff. It's like, we're gonna do what? Y'all could do that. But as for me and mine, we not doing it. And I shared this with a lot of my colleagues. I was like, listen, I already told y'all I hate school. And nowadays, school is really starting to feel like school. The way that we have to sit a certain way, walk one direction,
Yeah, totally.
do all this. I'm like, I'm telling you, if I was a child now, and I'd be giving these teachers hell. Yeah. Yes, because I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. It makes no sense. I would question everything. I really would. And again, if you're trying to train up critical thinkers, you better have some critical conversations. Exactly. And be prepared for those critical questions.
Exactly.
And provide some critical answers. Because if not, miss me with the critical thinking stuff.
Yeah. 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 It's I mean, as we tie all this back to Breonna Taylor, the world, and a long list of names, if we continue to stay in these rules and do what we're supposed to do, when I mentor people, the first thing I tell them, I say, if you grow up and you do anything and you say, well, I'm doing my job, you admit I haven't done right by you. I don't want you to ever have that kind of career or experience. You may have to have that when you're young to get there. You got to do your job, but eventually it should not be, well, I had to do my job. I don't want any of my mentees to be in that position. And no, much respect to people who are in those places where they have to function, live their work. I have much respect for you. I'm talking about right now, the kids that I mentor, people I mentor. Like if you grow up and you find yourself in a spot where you are doing something you don't like or function ways you don't want to do, because you got to do your job and that's just your job, then I need you to stop and observe and think about the choices you've made, the path you followed, and where you are. Because for me, as soon as I hear, I have to, I guess I was kind of, without having, I couldn't maybe articulate the way you articulate, but I think I was in that same spot of why. I was totally that kid, why? And I maybe because I don't have children, but when I'm with a kid and they keep asking why, I provide an answer for every single why. Why? Not because I said so. That has its place. But I really think, and I get it, some people are just tired and exhausted. And they don't think they have the energy. They don't feel they have the energy to answer a single question. And once again, I don't live with a child that's doing that all day, all night. But I always find when someone's asking why, I'm like, I try and give answers. Oh, because because you need to be safe. Because if you run traffic, you might get hit by a car and die. It's going to really hurt a lot, and I'll be sad if you go. I remember feeling my little godson. We were on the subway, and he really wanted to get on his knees and look out the window. I was like, you can do that, but check it out. I need you to make sure your feet are off the seat. Why? Because your feet are on the ground that's outside, dog doo-doo, dog pee-pee, anything else you can't even think of that's in the street. You're putting that on the place someone has to sit down. Someone can sit down, wipe their pants off, and then sit up and touch their mouth. Think of how gross that is, and you help that happen. So just dangle your feet over the side. You're tall enough. And I remember being on the subway, and there's a woman watching me say that, and she was just like, wow, it's good. I was like, that ain't good. It's Tuesday. Stop seeing that as like exceptional. We have to, I really believe that we have to stop seeing what should be good messages, notes, behavior, patience as like exceptional. Because that puts us in a place of, I got to do my job. I think that's a problem with training the police officers. Well, these are the laws and rules that are in place. They're problematic, but that's what they are. Then get inside and infiltrate and turn that around. Because I'm with you. I know we're speaking at 10,000 feet for some of this stuff because we're not in the field and in it, but I still believe that it's important to try and fight and push for that, because that's how things don't change.
And I mean, you and I both know it's important to have standards. It's important to have expectations. It's also important to have differentiation where appropriate and accountability. like across all places. Those things make sense to me. It makes sense. And that the piece where you're talking about, always give an answer why. I've also seen you though, and I think this is where other people fail. And because they don't do what you do and what I do, um, they it might either stem from a place of insecurity or ignorance, to a point where when someone asks you a question that you don't have an answer for, you won't say because I said so. You won't say it just is. You would say, you know what? That's a phenomenal question. A very good question. I'm glad you asked that. We should both endeavor to find out together. How can we figure that out? We do that. And other people, they might say, wow, I've just exposed myself. I'm weak now. And because I'm weak, I have to react in terms of strength or brute force. And I think what we see sometimes, a lot of stuff comes from ignorance and insecurity, where folks feel like they've been figured out to be some weak pushover, and they have to show their domination as opposed to their humanity, which in turn dehumanizes someone else and devalues their humanity. So thinking about policies and thinking about laws and procedures and protocol, my question still remains the same. What laws, what rules protect Black women? Period. Which rules, like, how are they safe? Because we keep seeing time and time again, like, I'm worried for my nieces. I have 4 of them. I'm worried for my sisters. I have 3. I have more if you want to talk about it. But all I'm saying is, there's nothing but a whole bunch of Black women in my life.
Yeah.
And it concerns me.
Yeah.
And we see this time and time again. It's not just the Black men who are being killed. It's Black women, and they don't get justice. So it's tough.
Yeah. And it's historical. This is the term intersectionality comes from Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, and all of us misuse it. I don't know I wonder how she feels now that it's like Kleenex. Xerox is a whole nother word. It became something else. But when she first talked about it, she was trying to talk about the complicated space of a Black woman in America, where her female status meets her Black status, and she is defamed, destroyed, killed, murdered, suffered, persecuted because of it. That's what intersectionality is. It ain't about what you do in the morning intersecting with what you do in the afternoon. It ain't about all your identifiers. It is about Black women. And the fact that every time I hear somebody say it, I'm like, how you're misusing that word? And I get it, words change and we take it, we go with it. But I always want to say, if you're going to use that word, please understand the root of it and the power, the reason it was put in place and what it was meant to do intellectually, strategically, from a brilliant woman, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Something else she said, I saw her speak once. She was like, I don't want any allies. I want accomplices. I don't want people that when it gets too hard, they check out. If we're in the car, and the car gets stopped, don't jump out and run. Stay in that car with me so we can figure it out. I love that. I love that idea and concept. So I just education is a valuable, important tool, and many of us don't truly have it at the level that we need it. And I think that's why I stay committed to, and why I have the patience when people are just acting a fool. I also thought about something in terms of sticking to itness of it all. In terms of staying in it when you don't know. And like, I was in a relationship that ended, and it ended pretty badly, and I was dating a fool, a total fool. And this is a moment of like, God, the world, universe taking care of you. I kid you not, like a Bible fell off the shelf and opened up. Right? To like somewhere in Leviticus, and it had the simple line, fools fear wisdom and instruction. Right? And I was all like, who's in this room that did that? Like who? I kid you not. Like there's no reason for the book. The earth wasn't shaking. It was Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
It opened up, and I was like, I needed to hear that. I'm still in pain after the breakup. You know, it's hard when you think you're in love and it doesn't go the way you want it to. And you're trying to understand all the fights and arguments and disagreements and how you just can't get to the same space. And I was like, I was dating a fool. That's why. And whenever I would bring stuff to the table, I think about that a lot. And I hear somebody being like, no, don't try and tell me. Fools fear wisdom and instruction. That's biblical. Literally. Literally. So I think that I felt that tying into what we were discussing in terms of laws and understanding them and making decisions based on how those laws are put into practice and play out. I think is what I was thinking about.
I like that. Thanks for sharing that. For sure. For sure, good brother. Yeah, a lot of difficult questions.
Oh,
a lot of conversations that need to be had, and moving past conversations to the action that needs to take place in order for us to continue to push, even when it seems like we've reached a stalemate.
For sure. Yeah, and I still have hope. I still have hope.
Got to.
That's why I show up. That's why I show up.
Got to. Well, I guess, as the group from Privilege to Progress says, maybe we should toast and say to showing up.
Show up. Those are my people. Show up, show up, show up. Beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. The first time I had this, I was like, it's all right. It's all right. And I haven't probably had much since then. I don't know why it tastes so good right now.
Oh, excuse me, brother. Let me put on my hat from YouTube University. So what they say, good brother, is if you get a bottle and you drink it down past the shoulders of the bottle, it allows time for it to open up. A little bit of oxidation, a little bit of oxygen gets into that, and it lets it, to put it simply, it lets it do what it does.
Look at that. Look at you with all your knowledge.
I be studying.
I see. You are no fool. You are no fool. I appreciate that about you.
And listen, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
I know. I saw it. I know. Brown Juice Barbershop.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate not only sharing this knowledge and this conversation, but brother, sharing some good brown with you.
Oh, yeah.
Learning, top notch.
That's good stuff.
Yes, sir. Well, until next time, stay safe.
Barbershop.
Stay healthy.
Yes.
Peace.